Ladies and gentlemen, I feel very fortunate today that I have the opportunity to have a chat with Bobby Wooten. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, who's Bobby Wooten? Chances are you have not heard of American Utopia, the show that was absolutely taking over Broadway before this pandemic. Now, the good news is that this Sunday on Crave TV or HBO in the States, you're going to have an opportunity of seeing this fantastic show. Bobby, thanks so much for taking some time to join us today.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So the first thing I've got to tell you is I absolutely loved the show. We're going to get into that in a little bit. And I absolutely loved how incredibly charismatic you are. Because with the exception of the whole hair thing, I felt like I was looking in the mirror. So I did enjoy that. But I want to go back a little bit.
Too, so.
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit. Can you tell us about how you got started in music?
So I was very young. I was born in a music family, actually, and my grandfather started a gospel choir in Chicago called the Wooten Choral Ensemble, and then from there it was kind of my dad, aunt, uncle were all in that. My dad very early on too, like organ and piano, and so then he went on to New York and started working in like more pop music and R&B and also some Broadway work. And so I was born in New Jersey. So had like a little taste of that. He would have the studio in the basement, and then we relocated to Chicago when I was like 7 so that he could take over the gospel choir. So then I kind of did the same, where I was in church playing a lot, but then also with that, just like the first instrument I was playing was piano, and then bass comes along just when I'm hanging out with two friends. I'm probably like 10 or so years old, and we loved Blink-182. And one of my friends played guitar and the other played drums, and we didn't have a bass player. So I was like, all right, I'll pick up the bass. And then that's how I got in that. And so bass was kind of like the first instrument that I taught myself. And then I did like a little clarinet and band. I was just like always in any music activity. And then, yeah, studied at university at Indiana, and then relocated to New York.
Excellent. Now, how was pre this Broadway show, what was the experience like in terms of the music industry for you? Because I know you've collaborated with a lot of different artists.
Yeah. Great. I work extremely hard. I've been fortunate as well too. I do a lot of various things. So my dad, one of my biggest mentors, he was kind of like told me young that to make it in music, there'll be a select few that have like one gig, and that gig pays for everything, like a standard job or something. But he was like, the rest of us, you're wearing different hats. So here, maybe you're arranging, or here you're a bass player, or here you're writing, or here you're producing. And so I've kind of just like teaching too, just diversified myself like that. So what brought me to New York was I was actually scoring music for a sports agency, like a sort of amateurs for like boxers and minor league baseball players when they would walk out and stuff. And so that was cool. And then I got here, I was doing some DJing and teaching at first. And then I was playing with artists and would go on like short tour stints, and then also started subbing on some Broadway shows. And then I think random placements would come too, just from like studio work. So like one of my first one was with Jennifer Lopez. And but then the first thing I did for the Empire television show was like just scoring strings for it. And after I did that, then they brought me on to produce and write for that show. So I worked on season 4 of that. And then like at that same time, it started to be like a lot more work with artists, and also started scoring like commercials and some bigger sports documentaries is what I was getting into. And then I meet David Byrne at he did a show called Joan of Arc, and I was playing on that. Okay. And at the very end of like the last show, he comes up to me, he's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna be calling you soon." And so I didn't know what it was for. I knew he was working on an album at that time, which would be American Utopia. But so then he called me to do the tour, and then that was 2018, and kind of.
Wow. Now you said the show it was Joan of Arc?
Correct.
So in Joan of Arc, were you the outgoing, charismatic Bobby Wooten that I have come to know and love in that show as well?
Well, they actually, I was backstage most of the time.
Okay.
And so I only came out. Yeah, here I was like pit musician, but
Okay.
there was actually two of the other guitarists, and love them. They're amazing. They were on stage throughout the whole thing. And I did I was joking with Alex Timmers directed that, and then he was production consultant for the American Utopia Broadway show. But now that he's seen me like really on stage and stuff, I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I had wanted to be one of the two that were on stage.
Yeah.
I certainly like that aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows. Now, for if you were to explain the American Utopia show, how would you describe it?
It's unlike anything I've ever seen. So I anticipate that means most people, because what David really saw after getting was there's 12 musicians in total, including David. There is no amps on stage. There's no set drum set. It is an empty stage before people walk onto it. And so we're all wireless. And half of that, then 6 is like the drum percussion section, and they wear harnesses almost like marching band style. And the other 6 is the guitar, bass, keys, 2 background singer dancers, and we're all dancing. But so what that opens it up for is high amounts of choreography. So it's a highly choreographed show done by legend, one of my favorite people, Annie V. Parsons. And to say that, I mean, she took, I guess there was 2 professional dancers and the rest of us were musicians. And then, she choreographed it like crazy. And a lot of it also was like, I knew vaguely what we were doing, but then things start to we start to do shows and we start to do new things. And then it's like, oh yeah, let's keep doing that, because that works. And Dave would be the first to say that too. But so when we rehearsed, it was like 1 week, we did 10-hour days, 6 days a week. The first week was all music, and the next 3 were all dancing, because she had to kick the rest of us into dance gear. And it was kind of like coordinates that we were doing. I mean, it was we'd learn choreography for one song and then another and then another. And then it'd be like, okay, let's do all 3 in a row. It's almost like marching band in that way, where it's like, it's a lot you're thinking about. And then it becomes, then you're doing it each night. But I mean, it's just an insane visual experience on top of like the incredible songs and stuff. And then on Broadway show, a little bit narrative was kind of, with David's dialogue, was added for the Broadway experience.
Yeah. Now here in Ottawa, where I live, one of our big venues is a place called the National Arts Center. And I've been to a lot of shows there, and a lot of times people are in the audience and they're hearing something and they want to get up and dance, but it's because it's not really a concert venue. I mean, it's a venue, but it's a venue that usually hosts theater and opera. People aren't getting up. Whereas one of the things I love about your show is it's hard to see a time in the show where the audience is in their seats. Like, people are just so passionate and having such a great time with it.
Is that where we played? Do you know where we played when we were in Ottawa on the tour?
Oh, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't know. If you were in Ottawa, it would 95% be the NAC.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this was Ottawa or whatever, but we had been out for let's just say 4 months doing shows where, like you said, no one was sitting down. And I remember, I love Canada, but I remember it was one of the first Canada shows was it took them longer to stand up.
Yeah.
And it was we saw that also, not just there, but when we're in Paris and we're at this renowned classical opera house. I should also probably know the name of that, but we were there too. And it was kind of what's expected behavior traditionally versus what we were bringing there. So there was that. And then also that was on Broadway as well too. It took after we did 150 shows on the tour, I love the energy. First off, when people are sitting down anyways, the energy is great. It's nothing against that. It's just, it's different when everyone's standing and dancing, like you said. But so Broadway was a similar thing where they're traditionally not standing up and stuff. And so it took a while for us to get used to that. There was a certain point in every show where they would want to stand up anyways. So it's interesting when you're looking at the energy of people that want to move and they're looking around am I allowed? Will they tell me to stop?
Yeah. It's I can do this. This is okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so when we filmed though, Spike brought a whole other energy. And that was, both of those, we filmed across 2 performances, and that was just on tour.
Yeah. Now, one of the things is, and I don't want to sound ignorant, but I want to be honest with you. If you had said to me, before TIFF had sent me the list of the movies that were, sorry, the Toronto International Film Festival had sent me the list of movies that were coming out. If you had said the name David Byrne to me, it might not have registered. Talking Heads would have, but the name David Byrne might not have. And I feel, again, ignorant saying that, but I'm being honest. But one of the interesting things I find about this show is it's not really the David Byrne show. It's very much everybody is equal on this stage. You see multiple times where different musicians and performers are coming to the front of the stage. So historically, to your point, you've got maybe your front person, if you will, and then you've got your band in the background, but everybody makes the show. And it's like, it's, you know how you usually talk about a tripod. Well, you've got 12 and you need all of those pieces, because all of those pieces is what really makes the show for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, for each of his different parts, and also David's very open to others' ideas. So on the stage performance too, it's kind of like he built a climate where you were okay. It's like he wanted individuality to be expressed. So it's kind of like, you know, what I add or what Angie or any of the drummers or anyone adds, it's like their own personality like really comes out. And like that's also like, you know, one of the themes behind the show.
Yeah. And I think one of the most powerful moments of the show is where you guys cover the Janelle Monae song, Hell You Tell 'Em About. And I think there's just something extremely powerful about saying the names. Can you tell people a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. Well, the song itself, Janelle Monae wrote it with her camp, probably around Trayvon Martin, maybe like a little bit afterwards. Definitely like when I'm out protesting, that's like one of the constant ones. And sadly, you know, it gets updated with new names. And so that's the only cover in the show. We did it on tour. It actually ended each performance. That was the final thing. On Broadway, there's one song after it, but that was the final thing. And it was kind of like the final statement. If this show is like, it's in a way, it's about like life, and there's plenty of good things, and there's hope, and there should be hope, but there's also, we all know that there exists all these other things. And Hell You Tell 'Em About, it's great for somebody like David Byrne to use his platform to do that. We were doing that show every single night, like I said, in 2018. So even before now, it's like more talked about. But we would go around the country, around the world even, and update the names everywhere. So when we were in Brazil, we were performing it in Portuguese, and they have their whole history of victims due to police brutality. And the song itself is really, all the names are from police brutality victims, Black people. We did it in other countries, we adapted it, but the original version is like that. So it was, you know, it's one thing to do it in Broadway, and I would say that most of the crowd there is kind of liberal, I would say. So maybe a little bit more accepting of it. But then when we're doing it Florida, there was instances and people that like loved every single second of the show, watch them for front row, dead center. And then that comes on, and it's a very like anti that, people walk out. I mean, this isn't in the grand scheme of it, it's not majority of the people, but it is like,
but it happens.
Oh yeah, it happened. So all the more just impact. And that's what David, you know, wanted to use his platform to say. Obviously the band is diverse in many race, but also immigration and sexual orientation and all that. You know, we embraced it, and I think it was kind of, it's a good like chant, it's a good mantra. It's something impactful that you're saying outside of just like, it's not just entertainment. It's not just shut up and dribble, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, that's one of the things I love too. It's like the entire ensemble, to your point, extremely diverse. You've got all of these, a variety of different backgrounds in harmony. One of the things that I've been saying for a very long time is that when we talk about racism, when you look at a group of young children, and we see young children together, the young children don't care about color. That's not something that's forefront of them until like somebody like in the family or what have you teaches them that that's something that they should talk about. So seeing, here we are, you know, and as adults, and you come and you see this performance, and this is a performance that again is just an array of wonderful human beings, and it isn't about putting people in a separate group. It's this very great harmonious interaction, which isn't just musically, but also in terms of the human spirit, which I think, which is something that makes your show extremely hopeful for us looking on to the future. From a collaboration standpoint, I'm curious. Now, obviously, you mentioned you gave props to your choreographer. Do you guys as musicians have the opportunity of putting in your own suggestions as well, like saying, "Hey, maybe on this song we might want to try this"? Like, how did that work from a collaboration standpoint?
Yeah. Both ways, really. I mean, there's the songs. There was creative input. If someone have a musical idea, like it was open to like it's allowed to do it. There's then things, just like I think in any other setting. David does have like his rules and stuff, which is great, which I found out even more like in a later discussion on tour where we're readapting the set list, and he had like he wanted specifically like 7 songs from his solo thing, 7 songs from Talking Heads, and he has these things, but then it's like it's like I'm doing a fill and I'm playing with drummers. Now it's like 6 of them, but we will come up with musical ideas and they'll enhance the arrangement of the songs. Choreography wise, the same as well too. There's things where it's like some of it is a very like I'm doing this move. Others is like I'm here in this area and I know that, but then it's kind of like new things start to come up. And I guess a great song to that point would be there's one song called Toe Jam where we all stand in line at the front of the stage and we take turns coming out and doing stuff. And that was like, maybe some of them she choreographed, but other ones were like people are doing like their own thing. So that's how you get Daniel Friedman, one of the drummers, to do his infamous Spike Lee Loves This the Most, his neck swirl thing, which is cool. But so it's like, it was very open, honestly, overall. I don't think anyone was scared to share an idea.
Yeah. Kind of burning one of my rapid fire questions, but that's okay. I think it's pretty, I'm just going to throw this question into a comment. I think it's pretty amazing that there have been times over the last few weeks where I've been walking, because I walk every day, and I'm walking and I'm listening to the soundtrack, and someone's like, "What are you listening to?" "Oh, Toe Jam."
Is that your favorite?
Yeah, you'll see. Oh, is that your favorite song?
No, is that yours?
It's one of them, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's great. I don't know if I have a favorite. I'm like, whatever song I'm playing, I try to like that the most at that moment.
No, fair. Now, how was it? How was the collaboration with Spike Lee? How did you find that? Because of course he came on to direct the film.
Yeah, that was from the jump. David's number one director. He wanted to do it. Invite him to a show. Just recently, David told me that he came to 2-show day. They didn't talk after the first show, and after the second one, Spike just came to his room and was like, "All right, I want to do it." So there wasn't even like he even looked for anyone else. That was his number one, and that's who we got. And Spike, I got all the props to him. The way he like his focus in it. I mean, he watched that show like 9 times, like very early, or however many times he did see it, but I would see him sporadically through the audience. And it was like, whether he was knowing names, the shots that he got, and then working separately with the choreographer, like these moments, making sure they're captured and whatnot. And I'm one of 2 band members that haven't seen it yet. I'll actually see it tomorrow for the first time.
Okay.
The Spike, like his energy was it was crazy. Like when we filmed on a Saturday where we have 2 shows. After the first one, it was like he was calling us into his he had this bunker and had like 15 screens. And then it was like, he calls me over. I like sit right next to him. He's like, "Hey Bobby, like at this moment, you're not playing a note. Tell him, getting the people on their feet, like all the energy. It's like right here." I was like, "Oh, I got that."
Did he come to the right guy?
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, I got tamed down a little bit for the Broadway, but also, they're sitting down. So if they're not giving that energy, then I'm not as much exuding it either. But just really been hot. But like, if we're gonna take it that way, let's run that for sure.
Yeah. No,
So it was cool. I mean, he's the man for sure.
yeah, I absolutely love it, and I'm really excited for people to see it, because I have some friends who I'm very envious of, because they were able to see the live show. I was speaking with one friend in particular, and she was saying, like, I kept telling people that they need to go and see this. And Bobby, I want you to know something about your new friend Keith. Sometimes I'm on point with things, but sometimes I'm late to the party, and I feel with this I was a little late. But the party was in full swing, and I showed up, and I'm like, hey, I've got the ice. Like, that was me.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to make sure that everyone's coming to the party now, because I think this is a show that needs to be seen. I the way that I've compared it is very much like Disney Plus gets a thank you for bringing Hamilton, is the way I think HBO and Crave need to get a thank you for bringing American Utopia to their platform as well, because we're looking for something positive and something amazing during these times, and this definitely delivers.
Sweet. I'll take that.
So one of the things also that really impressed me with you is the fact that you spend a lot of time giving back as well. I saw a YouTube clip of you speaking to some musical students and motivating them. And I think it's always great once you've achieved a level of success, which obviously you have, to understand that there are people that are coming up, that are working their way up, and doing what you can to motivate and inspire them as well. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. Well, firstly for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at without other people, whether it was like mentors or extending help. For sure. It's interesting when looking at life and you're like on your path, but then it's like this figure might come and because they extended that hand, that's how you got further. I also, for me, my grandfather was like, he was very important for like Chicago community, gospel music specifically, but he was like always educating as well too. So that's kind of, that education has just always been really important to me. And so, yeah, so just recently, I started after George Floyd, and I had already my own head of Black Lives Matter, and like, obviously I'm Black Puerto Rican, and so I'm affected by it. What was different for me with George Floyd that I was seeing was that it was the demographics were different. It was like majority white people at these protests, which I had resolved to, like, that's what was most important. It's like, that is who, if there's the real problem, it affects me, but I'm not like the perpetrator of it. But it was different. And so I was a little bit inspired by that. And I was out there protesting, but I was kind of like, I have my own platform, so I knew I could kind of say more. And so I started to look at, and we were all home for coronavirus, and already then the way that people are receiving information is very, like, your phone is designed to give you what you want to see, essentially. So I was looking at like widespread people are getting their news essentially from, like, it's like opinion shouting at another opinion. And that's kind of like what landscape is. So what I wanted to do then was, like, also there was the phrase comments, listening and learning is what people were doing. And so I kind of wanted to just do, fine, like, we're talking about systemic racism. I don't, hard thing to grasp in, like, if you look in every single way, if we're going to like equity and education and mortality rates. And I mean, it's like, there's something for every single one. So my kind of thing was like, all right, I want to talk like, his history, only facts, like not saying my opinion, and just giving it to people. I essentially just read a lot and like reduce it down to like 2-minute episodes, so that it is like kind of the people that are listening and learning. My thing was like, all right, well, in 5 months, I've just seen it be a trend now throughout my life. So in 5 months now, so we'll see who still is like listening and learning. And this is me, like, giving 2 minutes, facts only. And I called it America Learn Your History. Instagram show. I try to do like 2 a week. But so it's been good. Like, the reception has been good. I also, for myself, it's very enriching because I knew some things for certain, but like, I mean, it's wild to me, the readings that I'm doing. And when I'm looking at news articles from like 1890, and they don't sound too much different than today. And so You know, there, and in many ways, it's like it's helped deepen and enrich myself too. And so, yeah, like, and then and then I like present it in a digestible way.
Yeah. And this is something that we chatted about earlier. I mean, I think a lot of us, you know, were very much affected by the George Floyd killing, we've seen a lot of different things happening since then, with in terms of like companies speaking out and a lot of peaceful protests and things of that nature. One of the things I did on my platform was I started a dialogue called Let's Talk Racism, where I'd have people of multiple backgrounds come on and be able to talk about some of the unfortunate experiences that they've gone through. And again, in terms of like my research for you, I came across America Learn Your History, and I just thought it was so incredibly powerful, because you're taking things, something like Mount Rushmore, and you're giving some background on it. And it's again, to your point, it's factual background, but it's not necessarily background that people are always necessarily taught in schools, let's just say. So I'm very appreciative of that series, because I've gone through and I've digested a lot of it, and it's very informative, and I encourage you to keep doing it, and I think it's great. And again, I think another testament to who you are in terms of using your platform, informing people, and saying, you know what, okay, you can sit down and kind of feel maybe there's not anything I can do, or say, well, what is it that I can do, and get involved. So I do thank you for that.
Yeah. And one more thing I wanted to say, actually, because I think what it really was too is that when you bring up Mount Rushmore, is a great one. There's one book I read called The Lies My History Teacher Told Me. And I also read People's History. I had a really good history teacher in high school. And it was kind of like, I was also raised in the land of Lincoln, which, you know, that's how we regard it. That's fine. But then I'm like in the library by myself, and I'm coming across this book on the N-word, and it brings up Lincoln, and I'm like reading this thing where he just still compares Black people's competency to that of not that much better than monkeys. And so there was kind of the way that history, it's like there's this hero's narrative, and that hero looks a certain way because of the way we say it. And so essentially I'm like retelling history, but it's like from these voices that we weren't listening to. Because why? I don't know. I mean, you know, I could speculate why, but when you look at something like Mount Rushmore, and it's like colossal, these four figures of American history, and what it is four white men, and what the land that it's on is land considered sacred to Native Americans. And then when you look at what each of those men did to the Native Americans, it's even more of a slap in the face. So it's kind of like, it's like, you know, whose perspective? It's just whose perspective. And that really matters, because then we're like, when we just keep teaching those things, part of the thing I loved in that Lies My History Teacher Told Me book was it framed it in this way that was like, we talk about history in a way as if like, if it was science class, we'd all of a sudden be like, when hydrogen kicked oxygen's ass. that would be like the title of the book, because for a history, it's like American patriotism, the strongest ever. Like these are like the names of American history high school textbooks. And so it's a very it's the way we do it, and it's perspective that matters. And then what I like about then your show then too, because it's like, yeah, let's talk about racism, because we have this for whatever reason, it's hard for people to talk about racism, right? And I think it's less hard for minorities to talk about it, because we have to deal with it anyway. So when you get other figures, and like when I just take a step back, and I'm just like, wait, so it's hard to talk about racism. It's hard to talk about. You're afraid to say something that would offend someone else when you just want to talk about how everyone's equal.
Yeah.
That to me is like that's an insane concept. Like whatever, like it's insane. And then I mean, it is what it is. When I look at the time now, and like in Instagram, and essentially like people have a voice now, or at least been able to, you know, put it out there. And so it's tricky waters when it's like what's authentic and what is like, I'm supposed to say this, or like this is what I want to be regarded as, versus what you're actually what your behavior is like too.
No,
Companies
absolutely.
or individuals.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm very excited to see more episodes of American Learning your history, and I'm extremely excited for people to have the opportunity of checking out American Utopia. Bobby Wooten, I don't know if you know what's coming up next, but it's a little thing I like to call rapid fire. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, now, Bobby Wooten, I have to ask, as part of the agreement, have I told you about any of these questions that I'll be asking you?
No, I don't even know the rules. Do I just, okay,
So this is it. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and I just want you to, whatever comes to your mind, just kind of give me an answer.
like quick, doesn't matter how long.
Just this is your show, whatever you need.
All right.
So because I'm primarily a movie reviewer, the first question I always ask is, Bobby Wooten the third, what is your favorite movie of all time?
Couple.
Sure.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, City of God, The Matrix. Yes, I'll go with those.
Okay. Now, Bobby Wooten, normally when we think of bass players, we think of, there are a lot of great bass players in the world. We've been very blessed with a lot of musically talented bass players, but they're usually in the background. But when I think of great bass players, one player that comes to mind, and I have a strong affection for Earth, Wind, and Fire because they did write my birthday song. My birthday is September 21st. Do you remember the 21st of September? Verdine White, who I think is probably one of the most charismatic bass players. So you're kind of like very much on that path. Have you and him ever met?
So briefly, and I was very young, which was, it was cool. Like I was actually there's a big music conference, the NAMM show, and I was there young, like 12, maybe. I remember maybe I was actually a freshman in high school, I think. And he was just super tall and he was real cool. And it was a very brief exchange, but it was tight.
Nice.
Yeah, and Verdine too, for me, like those are some of my absolute favorite bass lines.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire song?
Way of the World, probably. If I was gonna specifically, I think the bass is absolutely incredible in that. They have so many though, but yeah, Way of the World I'll go with.
All right, I was hoping you'd say September. Prince's When Doves Cry gets a lot of attention because it has no bass line. As a bass player, do you detest that song?
No, I love all Prince.
Okay.
And my favorite Prince song, I mean, there's many, but one of them, it's just a piano ballad. How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore? Like that song.
Yeah.
Love it. No bass.
Yeah. A lot of times on Broadway, you would hear of performers, saying, "Oh, I can't believe so-and-so's in the audience. I can't believe so-and-so's in the audience." Who was somebody that came to see the show that you heard that was in the audience that gave you goosebumps and got you a little nervous or excited or what have you?
Broadway specific or tour, doesn't matter.
Either, yeah.
I'll always say, like, whenever I'm also pretty good at like spotting the celebs out in the audience, but and it always gives me a lot of energy. I was never nervous on Broadway. People that were there that was awesome was like Jacob Collier. There was so many comedians. I mean, Amy Schumer, Adam Driver. There was a lot. There was definitely a lot for Broadway. The only time I got nervous, two of my favorite producers in the world came to the Los Angeles show, Ariel Rechtshaid and Jeff Basker. And Jeff was actually my guest, but we hadn't met. And same with Ariel. But it was it was cool. That was the only time I was nervous. And if they hear this, well, I kind of talked to Ariel now, so maybe I'll tell him, but I don't think I ever told him I was nervous because he was there.
Excellent. Do you have from American Utopia a favorite song that you like performing?
No, but
from a choreography point of view or what have you.
Yeah, no, I love them all. It's like whatever song I'm doing in that moment, I really do love. But I will say one really cool moment. The first time I ever saw like any visual talking heads was Stop Making Sense, but it was also my friend pulled out showing me Once in a Lifetime, and I just remember watching it, and like, I mean, I was in college at this point, but David's moves are like David Byrne's moves, right? I dance differently than regular, but so I remember watching that, and I was like, man, if I was that guitarist, like, I guess I'd be up there doing the exact same thing next to him. Like, I'd just be vibing off the energy. And so then it is cool that I do get to do that all through the night. But once in a lifetime, that was the first time I ever even visually saw David Byrne. So now it's like, it's cool.
Awesome. Awesome. You have successfully completed rapid fire. Solid job.
Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. Now, I understand that American Utopia has decided that they did not want to be eligible for any Tony Awards.
Yeah. You're asking why?
My guess, I'm going to guess, because my guess is just that in terms of you guys were just saying that the show was more important and it wasn't about awards. Am I on the right track?
No, it was not a Frank Ocean like statement with the Grammys.
Okay.
It was. I just think Broadway does things for like Broadway reasons. I think because there's limited engagement, and then there's like, I'm not really sure other than like there's like Broadway reasons.
Okay. Fair. And of course we've got the big premiere coming up. What are you working on now?
I'm about to be, so I just finished up production for this artist album, Tate Tucker. That'll be coming out soon. I'm going back to Los Angeles to do just a bunch of random sessions, and I was just out there for a while. Also working with Benjamin Clementine, who's now a good friend. Sporadically doing some commercials, doing my America Learn Your History. It's more just studio work now. Oh, also with Titus Burgess.
Oh, okay.
Also,
very cool.
Yeah. And so he's out in New York. So we've been writing some songs together, and then those should be coming out soon too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to put this on the record. Normally when I do these types of interviews, a publicist reaches out to me and says, would you like to interview and so? And I love talking to people. So it's normally a yes. In this instance, after seeing the show, I sought you out. You generously gave me your time. There's, again, a lot of things about you that I find really incredible, inspirational, fascinating. When people see the performance, for those who haven't yet on American Utopia, they're going to see what I see. And also the fact that you've given back and that you're using your platform. Just so many things make you, to me, an incredible human being. And I'm very appreciative of your time today. It was so great to meet you finally.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. I appreciate it. And likewise, this is great.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, it is American Utopia. It is going to be premiering this weekend, again, on Crave in Canada, HBO in the States. Make sure you check it out. Bobby Wooten, along with 11 fantastic people, are going to put on a show that you're not soon forget. Thank you so much for taking the time to check this out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.